Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome back to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is sponsored by Gail and Sunny Haddad, dedicated loving memory of Cynthia Harari, Leilun Ishmat Simcha Batsalha. Also dedicated by Gail and Sunny Haddad, in loving memory of Eddie S. Haddad, Alav Hashem Leilun Ishmat Ezra Ben Nechama. Also dedicated in loving memory of Cynthia Harari, Leilun Ishmat Simcha Batsalha Bat by Nina and Leon Harari. Also dedicated in honor of Tammy Bezborodko as a Chanuka present. What a gorgeous Chanuka present. From her husband Jeremy and her kids, Cody, Duvi, and Daphne Horowitz. Thank you for sharing Breakfast in the Class with us and continuing to teach us the values of Achdut and Bitachon every day. For the Refuah Shlema of Eliyahu Mazar Fortuné and the continued health of Chana Bat Sima Fega. For in loving memory of Eliza Sarah Agami, Leilun Ishmat Eliza Sarah Bat Farha, sponsored by her son Isaac Agami. The year of Breakfast in the Class dedicated in loving memory of Leilun Ishmat Ruth Orfali Bat Adela, sponsored by her family. And the learning for this week is dedicated by the Torah Center Silver Donors, friends from Birkat Yitzchak, Mexico, which we now know what that is. We have a member of Birkat Yitzchak, Mexico with us. What's your name? Salomon Gindi. Aruch Hashem is with us live, so he was able to answer Amen. Okay, in loving memory, and Leilun Ishmat Leti Bat Ventura Vivian Alea Shalom. Beautiful. Okay, my friends, let us begin. We have a beautiful cross between the story of Chanuka and the story of Miketz. And I want to share where that is. And this one also goes out, this specific idea goes out as a Refuah Shlema for Haim Rafael ben Frida. So, I want to read to you a very interesting line. Vayhi Miketz shenatayim yamin. And it was at the end of 2 years of days. Uparo holem, and Paro has a dream. Anyway, he doesn't know what it is. No one can explain it to him to his satisfaction. What does he do? He reaches out to his people. Does anyone know what to do? How to translate this? Someone says, I have a guy. I know a guy who knows a guy. Actually, I knew a guy who knew a guy, but that guy's dead. You killed him. But I also, thank God, knew the guy. Otherwise, you'd have no access to the guy. What's the guy's name? Yosef. He's at the bottom of a pit. He knows how to translate dreams. The guy's ledge. Okay, Paro says, get him out. They bring him out of the bor. Vayiritzu min habor. They rush him out of the bor. They clean him up. They give him a haircut. He comes out looking like $1 million. Fantastic. Anyway, Yosef comes. He does his job. He translates. And what happens at the end of the day? He becomes, as we said at the first day of this week, Mishneh Lamelech. He becomes the second to the king, the prince of Egypt. Although it's always interesting, because he's not really the prince, and he's not really the king. What is he?
Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, Viceroy, might be a good word. Chancellor of the Exchequer, right? A position we're familiar with from London, right? So maybe that's what he was, but actually, he was much more than Chancellor of the Exchequer. Why? Because the Chancellor of the Exchequer is really the equivalent of our Secretary of the Treasury. Their job extends only to the money. Even though Yosef was appointed over the food and the regulation of that food, Paro says, Rak hakiseh egda mimecha. So he makes him in charge of the food, which then makes him in charge of the economy. But Paro says your powers are much greater than that. You're really in charge of everything. Just, I have a higher position than you. So he's Mishneh Lamelech.
Like Obama and Biden.
Well, like Biden was second in power. Yeah, okay? So this idea, except Yosef knew where he was. The difference, my friends, the difference here is that he's called Mishneh Lamelech. Now, a lot of times we use that term, but we don't know what that means. What does Mishneh Lamelech mean? Literally, it means second to the king. But Paro, he didn't need to do anything. With a man as capable as Yosef in charge, he was able to just be the king. He just did the fun king stuff. Everything else that happened in Egypt happened through whom? Through Yosef. Now I want to point out something very interesting. Remember, in the story in Miketz, the brothers are accused of treason. They're accused of espionage. They're accused of flying drones over New Jersey. It's very dangerous. No one knows what they're doing there. Okay? So what does Yosef say to them? He says the whole thing, we're going to put you in prison. Just so you know how powerful Yosef is, here's a case where they're worried, at least ostensibly, about spies infiltrating Egypt. There's a whole question of who they are, who they really are, who's going to... None of this involves Paro at all. Isn't that fascinating? And that was expected. Just to show you how powerful Yosef was. He's running everything. Paro is literally in St. Bart's. Okay. My friends, what? Delaware. Yes, I'm not sure why Delaware, I didn't get it. Huh? Oh, because he bought it on Mechila. Yes, my friends, Isma, because this is awesome. What does it mean that Yosef was made Mishneh LeMelech? How does he become, in such a short time, he shifts from being a slave to a king? How does that happen? So I want to share with you something that's very powerful, that's very beautiful. I could see Adine is smiling. It makes me think she already knows the answer to this. I want to share with you the Gemara in Masechet Gitin. It's really in two places. This Gemara is found in Gitin on page Samachet 68, and it's also found in Sanhedrin on page 20. Says the Gemara as follows. It describes a time in King Shlomo's rulership, when he was a king. He's banished in the craziest story. He's banished from his own throne. Someone is sitting on the throne of King Solomon that everybody thinks is Shlomo HaMelech. And who is that? The Gemara says, Ashmedai. A shed, like a demon. That's what Gemara says. Exactly what it means. There's a beautiful explanation according to Maharal to explain it in more logical terms, perhaps, and less esoteric terms, less Kabbalistic terms. But either way, the Gemara says that Shlomo has an imposter take over his throne. And suddenly, he gets banished and he's thrown out of the land of Israel. Shlomo HaMelech, the richest man of the time, the most powerful man of the time, the wisest man of the time, finds himself outside of Israel with nothing more than his stick, according to one opinion, and his clothing, according to the other opinion. Now, let me read you the Gemara. Gemara says, Al-Ha'i Sha'ata, on that time that Shlomo HaMelech had nothing, Amar Shlomo said, Ma yitron la'adam b'chol amalo she'ya'amod tachad hashamesh. What does a person have any benefit from all the hard work they do under the sun? What benefit do you have? In other words, Shlomo was referring to his own life, where he did all the effort under the sun. He built the Beit HaMikdash. He ruled in such a beautiful way. He brought such economic prosperity. He brought such peace to Israel. There was not a single war during the entire reign of Shlomo HaMelech. Al-Ha'i Sha'ata, on that time he said, Ma yitron la'adam. What does a person have from all their hard work? And then the pasuk elsewhere says, in Kohelet, a few pasukim later, V'zeh haya chelki mikol amali. And this was my portion for all of my hard work. And this, meaning there was one thing he could point to, which was the only thing he had left from all of his hard work. My vizeh, what does it mean? And this, what was the one thing he was pointing to that he had left? Rav Shmuel nechleku b'nidon. Rav Shmuel had a machloket in this, says the Gemara. Chad Amar, one says, Limaklo. He had his walking stick. Chad Amar, and one says, Gundo, his clothing. So, two opinions. Either he had his walking stick, that's it, no money, nothing at all, or he had Gundo, he had his clothes. Now the Talmud tells us, what did he do? He had nothing. Mechazer ala pitachim. Shlomo HaMelech is knocking on doors, could you imagine? Begging for money for food. Slowly trying to make his way back to Jerusalem to try and convince the people in power that he's been unfairly excised from his throne, exiled, and he wants the throne back, and the person on the throne is an imposter. My friends, he manages in the end to convince the Sanhedrin. He manages in the end to come up with a way of revealing that the person on the throne was not him. We're not going to get into the ins and outs of that story. However, the Gemara is telling us something over here which is unbelievable. It tells us that all he had left here was his stick or his clothes. Fascinating, because the Gemara in Sanhedrin, the second Gemara that we mentioned, the Gemara says that even though all he had was his stick, says the Gemara, but still, Mashal al-Maklo, he ruled over his stick. He was a Melech al-Maklo. He was a king over his stick. The question is, what does that mean? That he was a king? How is a person a king over a stick? What does that look like? And the rabbis tell us something extraordinary. You know what allowed Shlomo HaMelech to climb out of that hole, to rise back to the throne? Machloket, if he ever got to his original place of power and glory, or if he got the throne back but didn't quite manage to be who he was. But at least according to one opinion, he managed to climb back to the heights, to the peaks of his performance. How does a person climb back? How do you get back what you once had? Listen to the words of the Gemara again. Malach al-Maklo. Mashal al-Maklo. You become a king over a stick. Shlomo HaMelech had no throne, and he had no money, and he didn't have his wives, and he didn't have his power. He didn't have food, and he didn't have anyone to listen to him. He didn't have an audience. But he never stopped being a king. And so long as there was one thing he could be a king over, Shlomo HaMelech could retain in his mind, in his persona, the feeling that me, I'm not an Eved, I'm a Melech. So what did he rule over in the absence of all of those things? His stick. Now, I don't know if any of you has ever gone on a hike. I know I'm speaking to Americans from the Upper East Side, right? But some of you may have been on hikes. Some of you may have been dragged unwillingly on a hike. But if you've ever been on a hike, you'll know that one of the least problematic things on a hike is not bringing a walking stick. Because if you look around you in the forest, you're surrounded by walking sticks. Some of them are still growing, but you're surrounded by walking sticks. All you need to do is go over to a large branch, lean on it, yank it off, and what do you got? A walking stick. When Shlomo HaMelech had maklo, one way of looking at it is his stick. But I just want to point this out. There's two opinions. One opinion says Shlomo's stick. One opinion says his clothes. Who cares if it was his clothes or his stick? In either scenario, aren't we saying that he had very little left, but he was still able to maintain the feeling that he was a king? Did they have to really disagree about maklo versus gundo? What's the difference? The answer is, gundo was still the clothing of a king. One opinion says he was able to maintain his feelings of being a king because he had something left from that time. I'd like to suggest that the other opinion, Maklo, is saying an even bigger chidush. Now you imagine a guy top of the world, has everything that the wealthiest people have, but then he needs to sell his private jet. His business is not doing well. Hazit, ya haram. Then he has to sell his private island. Then he sells his fourth house and his third house, his second house. Then he sells this, then he sells that, till eventually he has nothing left. But he still has a very special pair of gloves made out of the skin of a unicorn, okay? Very expensive. One of one. There's no more of these gloves in the world. Special sale in Hermes across the street. Okay, longer line than for Goyard. I think they're telling you, by the way, what's going to happen if you go into that store. You're going to have to go yard if you want to buy anything. Either way, my friends, you understand, one of one. Anyway, every time the guy feels bad, what does he do? Pulls out his unicorn gloves from the old days, puts them on. Maybe he remembers that he once was a wealthy guy. Maybe he remembers that he once was very successful. You can understand that. There's something left from what he once was. And the Torah is telling you that even if there's a little bit left of your previous life, even if there's one element of your wealth from before, you could still feel like a king. The second opinion is going even further. Maklo maybe is expressing that even if there's nothing left, and even if all you have is a wooden stick that you grabbed off a tree, or that you found in the forest in your journeys, you could be a king over a stick. You don't have to have anything left from your previous life to still be a king. Because your kingship is not dependent on anything. I want you to understand the profundity of this chidush in Maklo. In Gundo, you still haven't learned the lesson. Because you know what? My king is not my throne. Me being a king, it's not the power, it's not the money. But you still made it dependent on a thing, on something from your old life. It's not about the fact that you are a king and the kingship resides in you, and you decide if you're an elevated person, and you decide if you behave as a regal person in a royal manner. You decide that. Maklo is the expression, I don't need anything to be going my way. I could grab a stick off the ground, and on this I will be a king. With that, Shlomo HaMelech recaptures his throne, his kingdom, his palace. Two opinions if he accomplished and achieved everything ever, or at the very least, the Tachtonim, he ruled the lower earth, so to speak. My friends, I want to express that for me is the story of Yosef. Yosef is sitting in the bottom of a pit. Yosef is being chased by a woman Potiphera. Yosef is cleaning the toilets. Yosef is doing every menial job. But while he's cleaning the toilets, he has background music playing in his head. Da 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 da. He's still playing the coronation songs. He's still there. There's a power that a person has to maintain being a melech, even if he's a servant and a slave. My friends, we know that in the story of the Yevanim, the Greeks came to the Beit HaMikdash, and what did they do? They were mitameh all the shemanim. Not only that, what did they put in the Beit HaMikdash? He'emidu tzelem behechal. Do you understand what that means? Just imagine Bar Minan, 1,000 times over. One day you walked up the upstairs to the big shul, and someone had taken the Aron Kodesh out and put over there a big statue of Yeshu. Could you imagine? Imagine walking in with your tefillin, all of a sudden you look up. Can I ask you a question? Would any of you stay and pray? Guys, korbanot, anyone? Hashem Melech? Right? What are you going to do? You're going to sing Kaddish to Oh Happy Days? You'd leave. Right? You'd leave, wouldn't you? You wouldn't pray here. I want you to understand how powerful this is. That we say, Bimeh Matitya Kohen Gadol Chashmonai Ubanav. You know what allowed Matitya to not accept the status quo? You know what allowed him to fight, to be able to make things, to turn them back to what they once were? Was that he was the Kohen Gadol that served in a time when the Beit HaMikdash had a statue, had an Avodah Zarah in it. You're a Kohen Gadol over what? You're sacrificing korbanot where? It didn't matter. He remained Kohen Gadol. And a person who stays a Kohen Gadol, even in those moments, he remembers what it should be like. And he can fight for what once was. And he can turn back the clock. And he can change the current reality. My friends, this story, this miracle, this unbelievable power of the human mind to feel without a name that you're a king. And then slowly but surely things get taken from you. You're still king. And slowly but surely you have, Bar Minan, nothing left from your old life. You feel, or other people feel, like you're unrecognizable. And yet, a person with a strong spirit, with a healthy mind, could look at themselves in that terrible situation and feel like things changed, but I have not changed. The same person I was in the backseat of a Rolls Royce, I am in the side seat of the subway. That, my friends, is the concept of malach al maklo. I want to say, and I want to end with this. We look around today and you see a lot of people that are down. They're upset. They're angry. They're bitter. What's happened? Oh, ever since COVID, my business, retail, in the toilet. Yeah, brick and mortar stores closing. You can't sell Walmart anymore. Difficult, hard. Real estate in the same toilet. My friends, what you have does not make who you are. And a person could be malach al maklo. You could be a king with nothing, but you're still a king. When a person feels that way, then they're able to do and accomplish anything. Because they approach the next step in their life without a feeling of yi'ush, without a feeling of rejection, without a feeling of anger, without a feeling of bitterness, without a feeling of hopelessness. I'm a king, and kings, they catch breaks, and things go their way. And people listen to them, and people respect them. I know people who did not have a lot, but they demanded the respect of everyone around them in the Beit Knesset. And I know people in the Beit Knesset that have everything, and no one can stand them. That guy is not even a melech on an empire. You know why? Because he's a slave to his empire. When your things define you, not only are you not a melech al maklo, maklo is a melech on you. Your identity is so bound up with what you have that it rules over you. And even when it's costing you the things that are most dear to you in your life, you can't break free. My friends, that's, to me, one of the things that powered the revolution of the Hashmonaim, was that Matityahu was able to be Melech al Maklo. What would that look like for me and you? What would that look like for someone that you know who now only has a Makel? And how could you appoint him king over his Makel? Because that might be the greatest thing that you could ever do for somebody. What do I have? What's left? What can I be in control over? I don't have this, I don't have that. Do I have health? I don't have health. What do I have? Do I have my mind? I don't have my mind, I'm scrambling. Do I have a talent? Find something to be a melech on. And if in searching in your life you have nothing whatsoever, pick up a stick and rule over that. Grab something new. My friends, the most important thing a person has in this life is the fact that he gets or she gets to control their destiny. But their destiny does not always mean what they think it might mean or what they want it to mean. It means how you deal with your today, how you deal with this minute, how you deal with this relationship or this situation. Find something to make yourself a king, and you'll never be subjugated by things ever again. Baruch Hanei Le'olam. Amen ve'amen. Rabbi